Welcome to the 5 o'clock show. It's time for Common Sense. Now, it's Katz and Cosby with John Catsimatidis and Rita Cosby, standing for truth, justice, and the American way, bringing common sense to the world. Now, here's John Catsimatidis and Rita Cosby. Breaking news, WABC.
Wow, what a day today. I mean, we have the situation with Mayor Adams, and what is the truth? In the studio with us, we have Judge Richard Weinberg, and he'll give us an analysis, and Ed Cox, the New York State GOP chairman, and Governor David Paterson, who will give us the perspective from the Democratic point of view. And me and Rita Cosby. What else can you ask for?
You can't ask for more. John, I'll just say, what an amazing day. Let's say this is the first time.
Where do we start?
Well, this is the first time, first of all, a sitting New York City mayor. Think of all the crazy things that have happened in New York City history, but it is the first time a sitting mayor has been indicted. I watched all the stuff today, and I'll just say I was a little surprised. I thought Damian Williams, who is the U.S. attorney, I thought he'd have more. I kept talking about getting bumped up from coach to first class, and I thought there'd be more. Ed Cox.
It's hard to find the quo and whatever, and you need a quo in the quid pro quo. So it's a very weak indictment with respect to bribery.
Your thoughts, Governor Paterson?
Yeah, that surprised me as well, because if you added all that money up, it's $100,000. And he kept saying $100,000 like it was $100 million, but it was $100,000. And I'm not saying that excuses that excuses the conduct, but it certainly puts the attempt to convict him, in my opinion, more in doubt than I would have thought. The Eastern District,
but
generally, I was just going to say this, John. The Eastern District generally convicts 95% of its cases.
This is a Southern District case, Governor.
Is this, I'm sorry, I meant the Southern.
It's 90, okay.
I thought I was in the South.
You're right. But usually the Southern District doesn't bring anything to court unless they can think they got 95% chance of winning.
Exactly.
All right. Judge Weinberg, you were a judge.
Yes,
Give us
sir.
your analysis on it.
My analysis is the allegations are serious. We have to look to see what the evidence is. They're charging with bribery. They're talking about attempt to get money from foreign countries for illegal campaign contributions.
Did he get the money? I mean, I don't care that he got bumped up from business class to first class. Nobody cares.
No,
I agree.
It's the money from foreign countries.
It's the money.
That's the dangerous
Ed Cox, the chairman, is exactly right. The big issue is money from foreign countries. They're not allowed to make campaign contributions in U.S. elections. Now, why that's interesting, folks, is because that's exactly what the House Republicans have submitted to 5 state attorneys general to investigate, because a lot of allegations that the Democrats have been doing that nationwide. Foreign money being laundered, making it look like it's domestic contributions or it's foreign contributions.
And by the way,
doing it through Black Blue.
Act Blue. And that's the big story.
Yes, that's the big story.
And we have Nick Langworthy. Hang on, we have Nick Langworthy coming up, you guys, talking specifically about this later.
Congressman Langworthy's on the oversight committee.
He's going to join us
right.
later on in the show. Yep.
And this is the one, the Act Blue, where foreign money gets siphoned through this Act Blue. And the Congress gave it to 5 attorney generals, 5 state AGs, because they don't trust the Department of Justice to do it. Is that correct?
Yes, and the question is, where did the money come from? The basic is, obviously, you're not supposed to get foreign money, and it's not supposed to be infiltrating U.S. elections. The other thing, I want to hit on one thing with Adams. The one thing that I found the most damning was not just the foreign money coming in through straw donors, but also that money had a matching fund. And that means that was taxpayer dollars that matched it. Do you hear what I'm saying? That to me was
8 to 1.
Right.
8 to 1.
8 to 1.
Right. So if that's the case,
8 to 1, and the 1 did not come from Americans.
There you go. A perfect system, Governor.
Perfect system. But that to me was the most, I thought, eye-opening of the allegation.
Oh, and by the way, let's not forget, and Governor Paterson alluded to it, this is one of 4 investigations going on.
Right.
What the Eastern District Governor is looking at is the possibility that there's Chinese.
All right, so let's get this straight. Southern District is the problems with the Turkish
exactly right
situation. The Eastern District is Chinese, and they haven't said anything yet Eastern District.
But there's reports going on that they're looking at Chinese attempts to do this as well.
They're calling it in now.
Yeah, they're called. The Chinese are calling.
They're making a contribution right now.
and
phone 1-800-CHINA for an illegal contribution.
Exactly.
You'll have your answer in just a moment.
And for the record, guys, Mayor Eric Adams has come out and said that he believes this is all political. He even said this today in his news conference, which was a wild news conference. And he said that he believes it's because he spoke out against the White House and others, and that this is retribution, that he wouldn't be on the radar if it wasn't for that.
We did say that during the 5 o'clock shows that the White House was targeting him because of that. But if there's evidence, there's evidence.
Exactly. But it wouldn't be the first time the White House was involved in lawfare.
Well,
Don't
that's
be surprised.
the other thing. And in fact, we have Professor Dershowitz in a minute. One of the things that's happening today, ironically, is a hearing. It's in New York Appeals Court, and it's over the big money that, remember, Judge Angora slapped Trump with that huge fine.
You mean where there was no injury to anybody?
Right.
All the money was repaid, and the banks would do business again. I could see putting Trump out of business for that.
Exactly right. That's the irony.
I mean, what Arthur Angora, my former colleague, is doing there, I have no idea. That case never should have been brought. And he, as a good judge, should have dismissed it.
I agree. And by the way, Judge, you'll be happy because I was watching some of the hearing, and actually some of the judges on the hearing were saying, this seems a little odd. Who is the victim here? Who is this?
That's the point. There is no victim.
And worried about the implications to business all over New York.
Well, Rita, that's an excellent point. You know why? Because they've sent out a signal through this prosecution that if you do business in this town, this statute can be used against you if you're a political enemy.
Absolutely. By the way, joining us now, we have Professor Alan Dershowitz. Professor Dershowitz, let's start, first of all, let's start where we stopped right there on Trump, the hearing today. Yeah. Can you believe this? By the way, I was looking, they say the judgment, this is this inflated judgment that the judge was talking about, $450 million. Yeah. Guess what? The interest every day is $115,000 a day on interest they're charging him. I mean, this is crazy.
Well, I filed an amicus brief in the case along with a professor from Yale Law School on the Eighth Amendment. We filed a brief not taking, not representing a particular person, but saying as law professors interested in the Constitution, we think the Eighth Amendment applies here. The Eighth Amendment talks about excessive fines, and what could be more excessive than finding somebody that much money when there was not even an allegation that anybody was hurt and there were no complaining witnesses. So, I have a horse in this race via an amicus brief. So I'm hoping the court will look hard on this and say this amount of money is way out of whack under the Constitution's Eighth Amendment. As far as the mayor is concerned, he did a very smart thing. He picked a very good lawyer, former student of mine.
Oh, he is, Alex Spiro.
Yeah, Alex is a very good lawyer. I've had dealings with him over the years. He comes from a very, very good law firm, and I have a hunch as to the strategy in the case. And for me, the strategy was set out at the first press conference. Did you notice who was at the first press conference? Almost everybody I saw on television was African American.
Yes. Are you speaking about who was behind the mayor when he spoke?
Yes, behind the mayor. Yeah. And I think he's going for a hung jury based on race. I think he's going to make the argument in the court of public opinion, even though the prosecutor is black as well. He's going to make a political argument. He's going to be very subtle about the racial issue, but he's going to hope that 2 or 3 or 4 members of the jury will be racially sympathetic to the first black mayor. That's a common tactic that's used. Obviously, the O.J. Simpson case, that was in the minds of the defense lawyers. I was one of them, and the defendant. And although in that case, of course, there was an acquittal with white jurors joining black jurors acquitting, in this case, the likelihood of a hung jury seems pretty high because the evidence, there's evidence of actions. Now, some of the allegations that I've seen, at least on television, seem absurd. They upgraded his room. They upgraded him on the airlines. I get upgraded.
Why would they even say that? I mean, that's nonsense.
I mean, when they see somebody who they know who's well-known, and I'm not well-known, but people know me, I get, oh, Dershowitz, we'll give you an upgrade. And so, they're going to have to go beyond that. Then they're going to have to prove, specific payments of money in return for favors that would not have otherwise been done. And remember, politicians do favors all the time. They do it in anticipation of support. They do it for all kinds of reasons. So this is not going to be the easiest case to prove. And with a good lawyer on the other side and with a racially diverse jury, this is not a slam dunk for a conviction.
Yeah, I was surprised, by the way, how thin it was. Ed Cox.
The Supreme Court's been very consistent on this. You need a quo for the quid quo pro quo, right? And what's the quo? I read the indictment. It was hard to see.
Well, the argument that they're making is that the Turkish consulate or whatever got facilitated and pushed through more quickly when the fire people weren't sure, and maybe that was a result of how nicely they treated him in Turkey. Look, in a jury in New York, the fact that he got favors from Turkey, Erdogan, is not going to help him either. Turkey is not today the most popular country in the world, certainly not among any Jews on the jury.
The Greeks are not too happy with him.
The Greeks are not up on that list either.
Yeah. I mean, he belongs to a club. He's an anti-Semite, anti-Greek, anti a lot of good things. So the Turkey connection is not going to help. But having a good lawyer on board, a serious lawyer with a big law firm behind him, a very good law firm behind him, is going to be very helpful. And I think the racial composition of the jury will be.
The name of the lawyer is Alex Spiro. Do you know him?
I know him well. He's a former student of mine. I've worked with him over the years.
I had dinner with him one night, and he seemed like a smart guy. Governor Patterson, you have a question?
Alan, what do you think about the fundraising out of the country, that issue for them to deal with?
You know, if it's black and white, I mean, if there are clear rules about that. The other question is, if it's just a violation of New York law, the federal court has to have jurisdiction. Now, they have jurisdiction over interstate fraud and all of that, but if it's just accepting contributions from a corporation or accepting contributions from a foreign source, there may be a jurisdictional issue there, too. Look, I haven't looked at the case.
So, Alan, it's about nominees. In other words, the way the scam allegedly worked is that money from Turkey moved into the States. There was some business guy who would then say it was a corporate contribution or contribution from his attorneys, but it was really foreign money. That's the allegation, which is a federal law violation.
And they're going to be able to prove it only because, as you know, the way federal prosecutors work is you go for the low-hanging fruit first, you indict them or threaten to indict them, and you get them then to testify against the boss. And so there's probably going to be a lot of guys rushing to the courthouse to try to get the deal first and offering to testify. Now, I've said this for many years. Prosecutors sometimes, not good prosecutors, but sometimes not only get cooperating witnesses to sing, they sometimes get them to compose. And that's when the worry comes in. When the witness decides to
embellish,
plant his testimony in a way that appears favorable to the prosecution to get a deal, because there are going to be cooperating witnesses in this case. That I guarantee.
And Professor Dershowitz, we just have like a minute left, but Judge Weinberg, ask him about the UNRWA. This is really
Alan,
interesting.
Do you know about the U.S. Department of Justice going into federal court and making an argument that the UNRWA employees during the attack of October 7th by Hamas worked with them in that attack, that somehow they're immune under...
No, it's ridiculous.
I've never heard of anything more ridiculous in my life.
Right. And it's dangerous. I spoke at the UN yesterday. I spoke with Colonel Kemp, with other great military leaders about Israel's proper conduct, both in the war in Gaza and Hezbollah. And, going to that building, I had to hold my nose. When you pass somebody from UNRWA, UNRWA is a Hamas front, and they support Hamas. And it's not surprising to me, of course, that people from UNRWA were participating in the rapes and the murders. And the idea that the United States gives immunity to them under a treaty, no. And I think that will be reversed. All right. Thank you so much, Professor Dershowitz. Really great to have you here. Thank you so much. And joining us now is Congressman Mike Lawler. Congressman, before we move on to other stuff, do you have a reaction? I mean, this is stunning. You're a New York congressman. The New York City mayor has now just been indicted.
Well, obviously, Rita, it's a sad day for the city, and certainly the allegations are serious. I think the mayor needs to be fully transparent with the people of the city of New York. Obviously, anytime you have foreign being alleged to come in either to a campaign or for bribes or personal benefit. Obviously, it raises significant questions and concerns. The allegations swirling around the mayor in relation to Turkey have obviously been going on for over a year now. And that comes on the heels of, Bob Goldbar's Menendez and Egypt. And Henry Cuellar down in Texas with respect to, countries in Latin America. So there's serious concerns, obviously, and I think the mayor needs to address them. Obviously you see Democrats, calling on him to resign, which is fascinating.
Yeah, it is. It is. And by the way, why did some of them, they seem to know before he even knew. I mean, AOC yesterday was literally calling for his resignation, and everyone's like, for what?
Well, that was, I was at the Capitol, and I was asked by a number of reporters, do you agree with AOC that, the mayor should resign? And I said, for what? Has he been indicted yet? And obviously later that day he was, but, certainly, obviously some people seem to be in on it, before others, but look, we'll see. Obviously this process will play out. I know he will, be arraigned, and we'll see. I don't anticipate him, resigning. Obviously, no defense counsel is going to tell you to resign in advance, but clearly his ability to govern is going to be limited, and obviously in a city completely controlled by Democrats, you're going to have people out for blood, and obviously people who have already announced they're running against him next year are going to be pushing to get him to resign and have a special election. So we'll see how it plays out.
Yeah, absolutely. Governor Patterson.
Congressman, I am always fascinated by these people, who call for other people to resign. One of the people that called for Mayor Adams to resign was under investigation himself for about 5 years, and finally got out of it, and nobody bothered him at the time. They let him prove his innocence, if he was innocent, and he had asked me to resign years ago when I wasn't even indicted.
Yeah, obviously, our politics has gotten to the point where the moment a mere allegation is made, there's often the call to resign. I think certainly from the standpoint of our justice system, we want to allow people a due process. We want to allow the situation to play itself out. I do think as elected officials, all of us have a responsibility to recognize, we're in these roles to serve the people. And if you sincerely cannot serve, insofar as really focus on the task at hand and do the work of the people of your community or your district or your state, obviously I do think people should give it strong consideration. But the mere allegation is not grounds for removal. When we, look at somebody like George Santos, I was proud to vote to remove him from Congress because, number one, we referred it to ethics. Ethics came back with a investigative report. He had multiple people affiliated with him plead guilty to the underlying charges against him. And obviously, ultimately, he did plead guilty to the things that the ethics committee showed he was guilty of. And given the way that he lied and misled voters and donors, it was very clear based on the information, and he had admitted to it as much.
Congressman,
but obviously these issues, people are very quick to call for the immediate resignation. I do think, generally speaking, we got to let the process play itself out.
And he says that Adams says he's sort of being set up by the Biden administration. They asked about it in the press briefing today, and it wouldn't be the first time it seems like the Biden administration has gone after people. Go ahead.
If he cannot conduct his office because of this, the governor can remove him at any time just giving him a chance to state his case, and then she can make her decision. So that is a possibility in this. What do you think of that?
Well, it's certainly a possibility, and obviously, there's no love lost, between Eric Adams and a lot of New York officials and the Biden administration, because on two major issues, he has called them out on cashless bail, which has been an unmitigated disaster, the single stupidest piece of legislation that has ever been enacted into law anywhere, and obviously the migrant crisis. And some of that, of course, New York City's own doing with their sanctuary city policies and the right to shelter. But, obviously he was very critical of President Biden. And so, there's no question across the country there is a strong belief by many Americans that the Department of Justice has been weaponized and that it is used as a vehicle to go after political opponents. And that is destructive to the country. Even if in the end that isn't the case, the fact that is the perception by many Americans is extremely destructive to our government. It's extremely destructive to our electoral process. And if people feel that the Department of Justice or a local prosecutor or somebody like Alvin Bragg is being used as a vehicle by which to determine the outcomes of our elections, then obviously that is a problem. And obviously the mayor is making that case in his vociferous defense. I do think he needs to address many of the underlying allegations, especially surrounding foreign donations. But obviously he is making the case that he feels he is being targeted because he was critical of the Biden administration.
Well, he wanted money for his city, and because of the migrant crisis. Oh, Congressman Lawler, thank you so much, and we'll catch up with you again real soon.
Thank a lot, John.
Thank you.
Okay, let's
Thank you,
do this.
Congressman.
Let's take a break right now, and we're going to come back. And today is Hispanic Heritage Day in WABC, and we're going to come back with a good friend of mine, Joe Ithia. He ran the Bronx for a while with Freddie Farrar, and one interesting thing, and he's going to give us his perspectives on what's going on with the Hispanic community in New York.
A common sense recap of the day's biggest stories. It's John Catsimatidis and Rita Cosby. Katz and Cosby on 77 WABC.
And everybody here on Katz and Cosby, 77 WABC is proud to celebrate Hispanic Heritage Day, sponsored by the one and only Goya. John?
Well, with us today is Joe Ithia. He ran economic development in the Bronx when Freddie Farrar was borough president. Joe, always good to hear your voice.
It's great being on with you. And saludos a mi familia in WABC 77.
Gracias. Muchas gracias.
And Joe,
by the way,
yes.
What a day to be on the air with you all. I know all of you, and all of you know me from my life. Yesterday, I was honored, by the way, for being a pioneer in the Latino community. And I also have to mention, I know our state chairman is there, but we met at the governor's office. We had offices across from each other, and I worked for George Pataki after the 9/11 with opening economic development offices throughout the city of New York to help in the community. And that was everybody. It wasn't just the Latino community, but as a proud Latino to working with a great governor, Pataki, in creating that office to deal with the general public out there and helping businesses stay in business after the 9/11 situation.
Well, we're not going to talk to Governor Patterson today because he's not, you're not Hispanic governor, right?
As far as I know.
Okay.
No, he's a brother. He's one of our brothers.
Maybe he needs to do 23andMe.
Latino way back.
Absolutely, Joe.
Joe, tell me, do you think, our sponsor, and we're going to talk to him next, Robert Unanaway, has said the United States is the second largest Hispanic community in the world. Have you seen Hispanics making a big going forward movement in the United States? Are they doing okay in politics? Are they doing okay in education?
Yes.
You tell us.
Yes. Remember, we have there's the commissioner, the United States education person from Connecticut, as a matter of fact, Latino. But yes, the increase of the Latino community grows and grows. And if anybody knows, our dear friend Unanue knows because of the products. And by the way, I always say this whenever I speak, and you know that, John. John was one of the premier of bringing Goya products into his Grastiti store and selling, and now it's a big thing all over the United States. So we are seeing major corporations growing. We're seeing a lot of young people now who are common sense folks who are saying we need to get into all sides of business and government, and that's important because the future is growing in the Latino community, and that's what we old-timers are doing, and we spoke about it yesterday. When you're a pioneer recipient, it means you're kind of old, but you've been around. So we've gone and broke through the concrete walls. Freddie said that yesterday to allow our Latino communities, but to join forces as a united front with our Greek brothers, and that's how John and I met, some odd 60 years, whatever we've been friends of, and all of you in the room that I've known, hey, it's all about working together, all the communities, to improve and help our young folks who are going to be the future, because we're getting old, or some of us, not you, Rita.
Thank
you're
you.
Still a young person.
I wanted to make sure you clarified that, Joe.
No, I needed to say that, but as we get older, we're looking toward with the young people who are going to be running the town.
Well, Joe, thank you so much. First of all, I'm so glad you were honored yesterday. So well deserved. We love you.
I was supposed to be there.
You were?
And we had a bank meeting, and you know something? I love to be there to honor Joe, but you know sometimes business comes first.
You were there in spirit.
We were there in spirit and with checks appeal.
It was announced 32 times that John Catsimatidis and Red Apple and WABC were one of the main sponsors of the event, and it was a who's who of Latino leaders and like I said, young people, and we're doing a scholarship for young people, and that's important. Yep. And it's all across the thing. And if I may, do I have a second?
Yeah, real quick.
Go ahead, Joe. You're a brother.
Okay, in regards to, all of you know, and the judge knows, 14 years we ran the Bronx Borough President's office, Fernando Ferrer and I. We know about investigations. We know what it is to be subpoenaed, but let it go through the due process. Okay? You can't go out and start attacking right away.
You're talking about Mayor Eric Adams, right, Joe?
Amen. Yep. Due process, Joe. Absolutely.
The governor said it a little while ago about, hey, you got all these people coming out of the woodwork and step down and stuff. Hey, we haven't gone through anything. Okay, you got subpoena. You got to go through a trial situation. You got to present. Dershowitz said it. You got to get a team of good lawyers. You still got to go through a whole process. So all of a sudden you're going to go out. That's why the governor is not going to say anything for a while. I mean, she made her statement, but she's not going to pull the plug. I know the judge said, the chairman said it. Yeah, she could come in and pull the plug, but no. Let it go through the process. All of us who have been in government at some point or other have been through a process of investigation and stuff. But you keep going until it's all done and you have your representatives in your legal team to represent you.
Joe, remember what Secretary Donovan said after he was acquitted to the DAs? Where do I go to get my reputation back? That's the reason. That's the reason that people in that position want to be given a fair chance.
Correct. And that's
Joe.
what
We love you, and we want you in the studio one of these days. Okay.
I want to come back now that I'm more healthy.
Your voice
I
sounds so
hang with you
strong.
guys.
And I know you were sick for a while. Your voice sounds so strong. I'm glad you're back.
I'm back.
You sound great. Thank you,
for
Joe.
allowing me to be on with you on Hispanic Heritage. Y seguimos pa'lante.
Gracias. Buena suerte. Gracias.
Take care. And Rita, now you have some hot news today?
It's the top news of the day, sponsored by Goya. Here's Rita Cosby.
And federal prosecutors are accusing New York City Mayor Eric Adams, as we've been talking about on the show, huge news. They are accusing him of being involved in a long-running corruption scheme. We're going to be talking about that later on in the show. Also, the Biden administration is offering up, get this, a $20 million bounty, basically, for information, if you will, on an Iranian charged with plotting to kill former U.S. National Security Advisor John Bolton. Bolton, of course, served under former President Trump. And Ukrainian President Zelensky is visiting the White House today as his country's war against Russia rages on. Zelensky will reportedly present what he describes as a victory plan in separate meetings with Biden, also Harris, and he's also meeting with Trump also during this visit. And those are the big headlines.
You're commuting home with Katz and Cosby. Now, here's John Catsimatidis and Rita Cosby on 77 WABC.
Well, in honor of Hispanic Heritage Day, our sponsor today, Goya Foods, the CEO of Goya Foods, Robert Unanue, and we recorded this a few minutes ago, and we're going to play the rest of it on Sunday during the Katz and Cosby roundtable.
And and here, let's go. This is Bob Unanue, who is a great American too.
Well, today is Hispanic Heritage Day, and we have with us one of the biggest in the world of Hispanic companies, the Goya Food Company, and we have Robert Unanue, the CEO, with us. Give us an update. Where are we in the world?
Well, John, thanks for having me, as always. The United States is the second largest Latino country in the world. We have Latinos, Hispanics from all over the world that are here in this country. We're close to 70 million. The Hispanic population will be the biggest group, they say, by 2050. So we have the responsibility, the opportunity to, as a community, to unify behind our values, God, family, work. You know, the United States is the biggest consumer, unfortunately, of child and human trafficking. And the Latino, the Hispanic, is the biggest victim. Worse than that, 70% of people trafficked are women. And, you know, the women are being exploited, the Latinos being exploited, abused. And this administration, this is a hundreds of billions of dollar business. And this administration is running this business. And we're bringing in criminals, too, to basically create chaos in this country. What President Trump wants to do is establish a strong border to protect the women and the children. President Trump has been talking about this. He is the one that cares about the women, the children, and our border, keeping America safe, keeping people from being exploited. And the biggest group, like I say, is the Hispanic community.
Mr. Unanue, tell us, do you think the Hispanic community is getting enough recognition in the political community? In other words, getting enough people appointed in the Washington level or the city or state levels?
No. The Latino community creates the most businesses. We're a big part of the working class, the middle class, which is disappearing in this country. But because we have a divided voice politically, we don't have that strength. You know, we're divided left and right and middle. But the one thing that does unite us is the values, God, family, and work. And to me, that is what is going to make the difference. If we can change this country, help form it. Politically, we haven't done it. However, in 2016, President Trump had 20-some% of the Hispanic vote. In 2020, 35% of the Hispanic vote, roughly.
And what's your prediction
Now,
for 2024?
2024, we're 45 to 50. We go to 50, and we win.
Well, I think it should even be larger because the Democratic Party seems like they don't like the Christian Judeo religion. And, the Hispanic community is very big Catholics. And I understand that Vice President Harris is not showing up at the Cardinals dinner in New York.
Yeah, it's not the Democrat Party because there's so many great Democrats and Republicans, in this country. But this administration, in my opinion, is evil. They don't care about the people. They care about two things: money and power, control. And they want to stay in power. They don't give a darn about, anybody but themselves. And we're going to lose this country.
Robert Unanaway, thank you for speaking out for the Hispanic community. And let's catch up again real soon. And let's hope the world and the country go in the right direction.
Thank you, John.
Well, and tune in on Sunday on the Katz and Cosby show at 10 o'clock. And you'll get the rest of the Robert Unanaway interview. And he has a lot of things to say. The Hispanic community is number 2 in the world in the United States of America. Rita?
And now let's go to Hank Scheinkoff. We are talking about, of course, the big indictment. Hank, great political consultant for so many people. Clinton, Bloomberg, you name it. Hank, you and I, thank you for joining me last night, by the way, as things were breaking, Hank, fast and furious. Now the indictment has been released against New York City Mayor Eric Adams. Your reaction, first of all, Hank?
Well, look, it's a terrible day for the city. It's a historical moment that we're going to want to forget, and no good can go from any of it.
I agree. First of all, what are your thoughts about just even the allegations, and how does the city continue? Eric Adams said today he is not going anywhere. Do you think he can kind of juggle both? I think the right thing for him personally is for him not to leave. The members of what I call the political industrial complex, the wolves with sheep's eyes are saying, well, he really needs to be given the right, all rights considered to someone who's just accused, but he really should leave because they want to get his job. That being said, there's no reason for him to leave. The law does not require him to leave. But the test will be, can he do this job and can the government function? And if it cannot, then it'll be the governor or someone else who has the authority to intervene and says, look, Eric, time to get out of here because you can't have chaos in New York City. And the first level of that will likely be, does the police department function if we start having arrests of police officers, which is rumored to be happening in the next little bit on the scandal involving some police officers, when the Times alluded to today. And God forbid that such a thing should happen. It's hard to imagine, but we have to think about the reality of all this. Now, the reality is also there's a guy named Jumaane Williams, who many people in New York know who he is. He's the public advocate. I'll tell you, when I look at a lot of his policies, Hank, my eyes roll back. He's a self-professed democratic socialist. He's called Republicans Nazis. I mean, he's had some very strong vitriol. What does that mean? He is a dog who needs to be put out of office, who called school safety agents, primarily black women. I think he called them perverts and thieves or something like that. And there's no libel involved there because he's a public official. He can't sue anybody for libel. That being said, he is single-handedly responsible for the destruction of safety in our schools by cutting costs, cutting numbers of school safety agents, and somehow believing that everything will be fine. Today, for example, 2 children in a school in the Bronx, one a 15-year-old young woman, was found to have, I think 16-year-old, was found to have a pistol in her purse. I mean, this can't go on, and he would be an absolute disaster, long-term, short-term for the city. Yeah, there's no question. When you look at his background, and I'm thinking, Hank, and we all love New York. You sit there and you go, at a time where we've got such huge issues with crime, the economy, there's so many, to have somebody like that. If people think New York is a mess now, imagine under somebody like a Jumaane Williams if he steps in. Well, it would be much worse. The question is, what happens? Should Eric Adams leave, be forced to leave, or resign under any circumstances? There would be he would be the public advocate, Jumaane Williams.
would be the mayor for a very short period of time. I think it's 9 days. Then it's a 50-day sprint until an election, which would be nonpartisan and would rely on the what's that silly system called to replace the runoff that is more elitist than anything else? Oh, yes, ranked
choice, right.
Ensuring that people have no choice whatsoever.
Hank,
and yeah.
I heard some of the indictment things that the U.S. attorney said. Why would they talk about an upgrade on an airline? Why would they talk about an upgrade on a hotel room? That's routine. That happens all the time.
It makes no sense to me, and the indictment in many ways doesn't make sense. But yet again, this is something that's going to have to be litigated in a courtroom. Yeah, what's fascinating, John, is the amount of money that the federal government put into these cases, and we haven't seen even the beginning of them, right? Into these cases in New York City, the amount of resources, we've never seen anything like this in our lives. And we never will likely see anything like this again. You know, consider with the amount of money they could have put into taking care of the migrant problems or other things, but instead they've been investigating New York City, and it may come to some value and it may not, but it is painful for those of us who love this town and owe it a great deal of gratitude for allowing us to become the people we became.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Hank Scheinkoff, thank you so much. We love having you on and getting your perspective. Thank you very much, Hank.
Thank you. All the best.
Thank you. And everybody, after the break, we are going to talk about dirty money. There are allegations of it coming from Democrats to an organization called Act Blue.
Is that a continuation of our discussion with Miranda Devine?
Absolutely. The big blockbuster,
Where
John.
is the money?
Foreign money being laundered by a Democrat party through Act Blue.
In a systematic, don't forget, the Ukraine was here. Zelensky, and he got $8 billion. Well, in return, he went to Pennsylvania to tell everybody in Pennsylvania what fine people the administration is.
Interesting stuff. And we have Nick Langworthy after the break.
It's a common sense recap of the big stories. It's Katz and Cosby on 77 WABC.
And we are back here on Katz and Cosby. John, we had the other day, you brought up Miranda Devine, who broke that big bombshell about dirty money going into foreign money into Act Blue. And it's sort of serving as a conduit and then going into Democratic campaigns. That's a biggie and obviously illegal and bad in so many ways.
And they just indicted Mayor Adams for that.
Yeah, that's a great point, Judge, because you look at that issue and now we're talking about enormous bucks here. Joining us now is Congressman Nick Langworthy from New York. He's a former chair of the New York GOP. He's also on the House Oversight Committee. And Congressman, tell us what some of you have discovered. It's a big deal.
Well, thank you so much for having me back, John and Rita. We've just enough. We have to get this investigation underway, and the House, Committee on Oversight and Accountability has sent a demand to Treasury for any suspicious activities reports from banks regarding Act Blue. Act Blue does not have the safeguards that a normal credit card transaction would have. They don't require the 3-digit code on the back of the card to make the transaction. So, the volume of money showing up into Democratic campaigns dwarfs any normal expectation. The challengers, who aren't famous by any standards on a national level, are supposedly getting donations that are under the level of disclosure. Under $200 does not have to be disclosed where the source of the money is. It's showing up through Act Blue, and you have candidates in some of the New York races that are raising $1.4, $1.5 million every quarter. In California, they've had some that eclipse $2 million in a quarter, in large sums coming through Act Blue. This defies any common sense. You have Kamala Harris herself. The day after she became, it was announced she'd be the candidate, she announced that she had raised $81 million overnight. And allegedly, 60% of these people have never given a single donation before. She never gave a speech. She didn't announce a policy proposal, yet we're led to believe 60% of these people have never been politically engaged financially, and then they went online and gave money when they didn't do it in the age of Bernie Sanders or Trump or Obama. None of that motivated them. But Kamala Harris, an uninspiring candidate for the presidency, that failed in her own quest for the presidency. She supposedly brought that to the forefront. It doesn't pass any common sense smell test, and we want to go look at the facts. So we're demanding those suspicious activities reports.
Congressman Langworthy, I understand Congress, you guys, the committee, hired a company to do the investigation, and they did a good job, I heard?
Well, the House Committee on Administration, which governs congressional elections, has a massive data firm and a data project that's been there, and they've presented all of this. We're taking that work and then moving to the next step, going directly to the Treasury Department, which warehouses the suspicious activities reports to banks. And that's where we're going to go get that credit card data so we can see, is there foreign money here? I mean, this system is so rife with loopholes that you could have someone like a Soros who could have very easily created a credit card cloning portal that would allow straw donations, which seems to be a topic people want to talk about in New York City today, or you could very well have foreign money coming into our elections, and that's what we need to get to the bottom of. It would take very little investment for a foreign entity to come in through Act Blue and really tip the scales in a key congressional race.
And I understand you hired 5 outside attorney generals.
No, they referred.
They referred it to 5 attorney generals to investigate it because you didn't want to go to the Department of Justice because you felt insecure about that.
Well, I don't think that we can. I think they have proven their inability to self-police. I mean, you see a weaponization of the Department of Justice right now, and that's a sad reality we've seen come down on President Trump this election. But one attorney general in particular, Attorney General Mayeres of Virginia, has done a great job laying out this case. He's got an active investigation, but we're going to do our part at the House Oversight Committee by using our subpoena power to go for those suspicious activities reports from the banks, just like we did with Hunter Biden. And we uncovered a lot of facts that led to ultimately the Department of Justice having to prosecute him.
Congressman, it's Judge Richard Weinberg. I'll tell you what troubles me. You mentioned the name Soros. Now, Soros has been the guy behind the defund police movement, getting the radical left DAs in place who refuse to prosecute. Now you see Alex Soros, who's the beneficiary of the family wealth and the future heir of all those billions. He's now meeting one-on-one private dinners with the vice presidential nominee for the Democratic Party, Governor Walz, which raises real kinds of questions. They're running as moderates, but we know Soros is a far-left radical who's undermining this country. Your thoughts?
Soros has done more social engineering in this country than I think any of us will ever understand, with the dark money that has shown up. And that's why I invoke his name in this situation. I actually, from my perch in the Oversight Committee, I also started an investigation last week that we just announced today on the fact that he has purchased 200 radio stations in America under the umbrella of Odyssey. He went in and bought their debt in their company in bankruptcy. And these are radio stations, much like WABC. They're all over the country, and they're bringing the voice of common sense and giving the conservative movement
not anymore.
Yeah, I was going to say that's done.
It won't be anymore.
Right.
But you have the FCC, who has taken and we had a hearing last week where we had a commissioner of the FCC, and I questioned him directly. Have you ever seen a purchase with foreign investment like this one expedited? But what do you know? The FCC has expedited this purchase.
Wow. I mean, that's because the Democrats control the FCC. Isn't that right, Congressman?
They have weaponized each and every 3-letter department in this government, and this is what's on the line in this election. The FCC has never expedited a hearing on a purchase like this, especially when there's foreign investment involved. Yet they've taken this unprecedented step, and we've started an investigation on that as well.
Wow. Ed Cox, go ahead.
Congressman, can it be challenged in court, what the FCC just did? They're violating their usual procedures?
Well, we're really looking at all angles of this. I mean, that is perhaps an option. I believe that, Soros came forward and paid a handsome price for these radio stations. I mean, and these are 200 across America right now, as Odyssey was in a deep part of debt. I mean, this got my attention because my home AM, conservative radio station, WBEN in Buffalo, is one of those stations that's going to be absorbed by the Soros interests. And, all the conservative voices there can be silenced. So we look at our options in the court of law. But the FCC, those commissioners are appointed by the president and confirmed by the Senate. We have a couple conservatives on there, but not enough to have the majority of that board. And this Republican commissioner that testified before the Oversight Committee last week made it clear he has never seen and is unaware of any instance where the FCC has expedited a purchase like that.
That's interesting. Ed Cox.
Congress, you have a special responsibility with respect to following all the congressional races that are up in the air. Could you quickly give us your analysis of that, where it is?
Well, I am, a vice chairman of the NRCC, former state party chairman. I was Ed's successor, and then he's my successor. So, he's a Grover Cleveland of the state Republican Party.
And how do you feel about that?
I don't know. Grover's kind of old.
Yeah. And you're young. I am thrilled to use, my experience to help this team. We have to return a majority. We have been the only thing standing in the way of Build Back Better in the Biden agenda, which I think we all know the peril that we've been under for the last 3.5 years. And it's now in the American people's hands. But for the last year and a half, we've been holding the line in making sure that their agenda was kneecapped, and that was what was critically important. We're going to win this majority. It's tight, and we have 35 seats in America that hang in the balance, but we need everybody's help to do it.
Well, you got to keep up those investigations, too, because that would be at stake. So, bravo.
The American people have to realize one thing. All these investigations go down the toilet if they lose the Republican majority.
Absolutely.
Exactly right.
It's so important. Congressman, thank you so much.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
And you know what we all work for?
Truth, justice, and the American way.